What's going on, guys? And happy Monday. It's the worst part of the week, but the best part, because the Snapchat is today as we talk about Wiccan, the newest ramp card to come to Marvel Snap. Is it great like most ramp cards, or does it fall flat? Alex and I are going to talk about the new card, the archetype, and what it's going to bring to ramp as a whole. We're also going to be talking about cards that are hot and rising to start off the season. Obviously, Zoo, but there are other cards that you should be playing right now before they get too popular, and Alex and I are going to talk about our list. And then we're going to finish the episode with a little bit of a talk about the future of Marvel Snap, what happened with the whole leagues debacle, and more. And we're going to talk about that all in today's episode of the Snapchat. Could barely say that. And as always, guys, I'm joined by the Alex Coccia, the one and only. I don't know why I messed that part up, but hello, my man. What a week for Marvel Snap. We had the launch of a season. It was my birthday this past Wednesday, and then we also had the leagues happen in Marvel Snap. So it was a big week, buddy.
It was a big week, and I got to talk about your birthday for a second, buddy. First of all, how was your birthday?
Oh, dude, it was great. It was good. I had a good time. I went to a little sushi place with Dexter. He's local in the area, so we got to hang out a little bit. And then I went to, I think we've talked about this before, about just like video game music and just like orchestras. I love live orchestra. So I went and saw Star Wars. It was Return of the Jedi. And then like it was like a live orchestra that performed with the movie. And man, I'm a sucker. Like Skyrim, all that. I love the orchestra behind these games. So it was a really cool experience, buddy.
That sounds incredible. I'm actually a huge orchestrated video game person as well. There used to be this thing called Video Games Live that used to kind of tour around. I would go see them and stuff. I dragged my wife to, or my girlfriend at the time, to a bunch of those. She was like, wow, this is so great. And I'm like, this is the Ocarina of Time. And I'm like crying while they're playing. And she's just like, you know what I mean? So I totally feel that, man. We got to go to one of those one day. But before we move on to that, Guys, I have to admit something that is so sad. I've been so upset with myself about this. I almost forgot to wish Cozy a happy birthday on his birthday. As content creators, we do a lot of thinking, right? We do a lot of troubleshooting, problem solving, title design, all that kind of stuff, and we do it in our heads. Now, the way that I tend to solve problems as a content creator is I go for walks to Costco while listening to like classical and jazz music, right? And so I had a problem I was stuck on, right? And I'm like, I got to ask Cozy. Cozy's the only one that could help me on his birthday. So I asked Cozy for a call. He gives me a call. He answers. And I know, Cozy, you must be thinking, oh, Alex wants to wish me a happy birthday, right?
I was like, if it comes up, it comes up. I was going to be like, it's my birthday. But I was like, if it comes up, it comes up.
I totally forgot to wish this man a happy birthday on his birthday. I was so upset with myself. And I realized afterwards, I was laying in bed and I was like, oh my God. It's Cozy's birthday. And he literally we talked for 30 minutes today about like YouTube and strategy and all this stuff. And I didn't wish him a happy birthday. I'm like, I'm a horrible friend. I told my wife, I was lamenting in bed while my wife's like, oh, it's not. I'm like, it is a big deal.
It's funny how birthdays, I don't know about you, birthdays for me, like when I was a kid, man, it's like the greatest day of the year. Like it's, you just like, you're so amped. You're going to go play like, what did you do for your younger birthdays? For me, it was like a lot of pool stuff and like, super soakers and like I don't know, I would have water balloons that were like grenades, man. I don't know, that was like we would just have like water fights inside. That was me. What did you do for birthdays? What was your birthday stuff?
I remember my parents went on vacation one time around my birthday, and then my neighbor, who's my dad's best friend, Bill, and my dad was like, hey, listen, if anything's going on at my house, you got to check it out. My brother's a bit of a party animal, so then like he's like, okay, I got it. So I have a LAN party on my birthday, and it happened to be on the weekend. And Bill comes over, and he's like, yo, what's going on? And he looks at it, and it's all dudes at computers, like, setting up, like, LAN stations. He's like, this is not what I thought was happening here.
Yeah, okay. Where's the alcohol? What's happening? I was pretty low-key, man. I'm still waiting on a invitation return from my 6th grade crush, Natalie. If you're out there, I'm waiting. I'm just assuming it got lost. She didn't come to my ice skating party. I picked ice skating because I used to play hockey, and I was like, oh, this is my time. I'm gonna show.
You used to play hockey? I didn't know that. There's ice in San Diego?
San Antonio and in Texas, I grew up a bit. And no, there's not ice down there either. My dad grew up, I'm a Patriot fan, all of my dad grew up in the East Coast. So like all my culture is a lot of stuff from like the East Coast and like ice hockey. Dude, I was like one of the few kids that played ice hockey back in the day. Again, like Rocket Power, that's where, like when I grew up, right? So like I played street hockey a ton, and then I went into ice hockey. I played on a travel team, man. I played for like 8 years before I played football, so it was like leading up to that.
This is crazy because we had a conversation the other day about how like you'd smoke me on pretty much everything athletics related at the Olympics, and I had this shower thought. I'm like, I bet you I'd beat Cozy at more like the Winter Olympic stuff, but apparently not Cozy.
Dude, speaking of, did you see? I will hop into this subject, guys. Did you see the breakdancing section of the Olympics? Tell me you did, please.
I watched it in bits and pieces. But like I saw the Australian bit, which I thought was hilarious.
So, dude, my favorite meme of the year was like when your toddler says they want to show you something, and it's like this. If you guys haven't seen it, Ray Gunn for the Australian Olympics. I can't even show a clip because they'll come after you. But like, she's like, she got 0 point. She got 0, Alex. It's the first time ever I've watched the Olympics and thought to myself, I can do that. I think I can do that.
There's also the long jumper, I think, from New Zealand who like did the run up and then just like flopped onto the.
I love meme culture because you cannot watch anything and then you can fit in a conversation, right? Like, so if you didn't watch any Olympics and you'd be like, oh, yeah, Ray Gunn. Or the pole vaulter with the giant wang. You saw that, right? Wait, you didn't see this guy? Where it's like he lost the Olympics, but he won at life, and it was the guy that pole vaulted, and he lost because his junk hit the bar.
Oh, no. My wife was talking about that. Apparently, she watched that clip over and over again for reasons.
Yeah, it was on repeat. You looked over in bed. Like, what you
yo,
doing?
Why is that guy laying his junk on a bar?
But yes, anyway, it was a great birthday weekend. I suppose we always get this comment like, this is a Marvel Snap podcast. Shouldn't you guys be? Yes. Let's talk about Marvel Snap now because we have a good weekend. Good week ahead, and we know what we're talking about over here. We're gonna bring the new card down, and then we're gonna have a fun conversation, Alex, just about like the future Snap leagues, which we just knew there's gonna be something happening there. There's got to be something happening there this week. We have a lot of drama, Marvel Snap drama to break down. But Alex, what are we talking about on your side of the Snapchat?
Cozy, on my side of the Snapchat, we're going to be talking about both Kate Bishop and Marvel Boy in review. We'll also be talking about the best token buys that you can do in the token shop. And then finally, as always, our Snapchat mailbag.
All right, buddy. Let's get to it. Let's talk about Wiccan. And this is not correct, everybody. So before we get the comments up, he is a 7-power card. They've adjusted him, which we always have a saying here. If they adjust a card right before release, it probably sucks, which we will get into here. But 4-cost 7-power card. On reveal, Wiccan says if you spend all of your energy this game, +2 max energy. But we have yet another ramp card, Alex, hitting Marvel Snap. And I want to say, by the way, if my voice cracks, it was Alex last week. It's me this week. We're both getting through that fatherhood hump of getting sick every now and then. So you'll have to excuse that, guys. But Wiccan has the new ramp card. Before we talk about him and the star ratings, he does come alongside Loki and Pixie, which is a phenomenal, really good cash as far as the new cards go. So just for that alone, I mean, pretty happy about those.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder, like, there's this meta around, like, let's put bad cards in with really good, like, spotlight cards, right? Like, Loki and Pixie are 2 great cards. And what's notable about both of them is that Loki isn't quite as archetype defining as he once was. I still think he's good, obviously. Yeah. Pixie is irreplaceable. Like, I don't think Pixie, like, you're not crying that you don't have Pixie, but there's always going to be a deck out there that's a Pixie deck, and it is a Pixie deck. And you cannot replace Pixie in it because Pixie has to be in it, right? So I think it's a good card to have in your collection. But Wiccan itself, man, I mean, this Naruto-looking guy, like, I've been bouncing back and forth about this rating, and I'm still very hesitant. Like, we were in about 3s range last time, and I think I'm okay there. I don't know, Cozy. This is one of those cards I'm not happy about.
So I think one of the things we said is, like, every now and then you have these cards that are super boomer bust, right? Like, we said Ajax last month, but that's even less boomer bust than a card like this. And where I think he is going to introduce maybe some unique deck building, especially in the future. I think we're going to dive into this deeper as we talk about him. But at this current moment, I'm just not sure. I built so many different scenarios out with the card. There's some synergies that I really like. One specifically that I haven't built around, but I love it and what it's going to do for the game. But at a base level, let's start here with the conversation. Yeah, and I would say, by the way, right now I'm at like 2.5. Let me say this. Let's talk about ramp, okay? So right now, excluding Psylocke, you've got the 3s, right? And now you've got the 4. But in order, I think you would tend to agree with number 1, which would be
Corvus.
Hope Summers.
Oh, Hope Summers. Yeah. Okay, Hope Summers. I don't know if that's actually a ramp card. Is it? Do we think it's a ramp card?
Yeah, for sure. I would think so. Yeah, that's true.
Like,
I
agree.
I see what you're saying though, as in like the traditional you playing big cards. You have like the other three. Hope would be my number one. If we didn't have her, you would have Corvus as the next one.
I think so. Like, I think right now, I think Corvus, like, the whole thing about Wiccan and the reason why I'm so hesitant about giving it a relatively low rating is because I was low on Corvus and I was wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
And I was high on Corvus.
Corvus.
I was high on Corvus, which is like funny because well, I'll get to why I some things I don't like about him. I think right now Electro is probably still one of my favorites, and then Wave would be under that. Wave's very situational these days. Electro is the card to beat, right? Because if you think about it, how many times do me and you talk about this? Almost all the time. You get that extra energy, fantastic. But how many times are you even going to be playing multiple cards? You're typically just trying to play these big cards. And so regardless, he will let you do that a little bit earlier. You know, you could play that, you know, 1 extra 6 if you want to, you know, on turn 4, which, you know, that's even if you ramp him out early. If not, you can have a turn 5 and 6 cost card. I was looking at all the combos you can do with that, and it's kind of already the same of what we have previously, right? With Electro, with like the 1 card thing outside of a couple. So he would have to beat Electro, which I don't fully see him doing that completely in those shells, which means he's going to either have to bring a whole new archetype of a ramp, which I think he might. He just might, which we'll get into that. So that's like my hesitancy towards him. Also, ramp is known as a very powerful tool in Snap. We all know that ramp is very, very good. But they gave him 7 power, and 7 power is a very respectable stat line, right? We have 6 power for something like Iron Lad. 7 powers, wow, right? And I get it. They're trying to make up for if you whiff on him, which, you know, could he be a card you just include into some archetypes that if you do get to ramp out correctly or, you know, curve out correctly, you get rewarded with a fantastic boomer bust card? I think that is going to be one of the ways that you play him, right? But that's my worry about him as a baseline.
My worry is that, like, every single scenario that I drew up with him is that these decks pop off when you get the 1, 2, 3 play with Wiccan on 3, but completely just poop themselves, like, otherwise. Like, when you talk about Boom and Boss, that is exactly it. These decks functionally just fall apart if you do not draw properly, and you're often trying to use cards. Like, if we're going to talk Domino and Quicksilver, we're talking about cards that functionally reduce the chances for us to draw into our deck. Yes, they come out at very specific times, but they reduce the opportunity to even draw into Wiccan on those turns, right? So, like, suddenly the deck build starts to feel weird, and if you don't get Wiccan and you have, like, oh, it's turn 3 and I put a bunch of 6 costs in my deck, twiddle my thumbs, LOL, like, what do you do? So, like, you got, what is there, Wave in there? Then the deck starts to, like, lose its identity because you're putting in all these fail safes for not drawing Wiccan. And so, like, we just know Marvel Snap, if it's anything, Wiccan's at the bottom of the deck every game. You know what I mean? If you've ever played Mr. Negative, you know where he is. He's at the bottom of the deck.
Yeah, which we've compared him to Mr. Negative a little bit in some terms because of the boomer bust nature of that. Also, the first time we could even have Quicksilver on the screen. Quick moment of silence and round of applause for that. That we actually get to look at him when we're not talking about cards that suck in the game. In fact, it just took me 20 minutes to find him in alphabetical order because I'm trained to ignore his existence. Let's talk about the turn 1 and 2, and then we'll talk about some more base synergies and my favorite synergy that I think people are ignoring a tad. On turn 1, I truly think the way you're going to be building these decks, Alex, and to your point, I don't know if you go Domino at all. I think if I look at it, you go Quicksilver. It's him and 2 other cards that I see, but I think Quicksilver is the must include, okay, or close to it. And then you can include a few 2-drops, right? Because we do have Psylocke, we do have the Zabu build we've talked about. We've got a couple other 2-drops. Kate is fantastic. We're going to talk about her more on your side, but Kate is going to be naturally a card you want to just have in the deck because then you could curve out, you know, following that, right? So there's a lot of reasons to run Kate. So I think Quicksilver into some 2s is going to be your main use of that build out. But then you can't get too crazy because then you have to, build the battle plan. You have to build what you're going to do with all that extra energy. And so I love Quicksilver. We've talked about some ones that we did like. I do think that there's a place for Maria Hill. I think this is an interesting card that gives you immediately that curve play. And when I thought about this, I'm like, you know what's a deck? And I'm getting ahead of myself because we're going to talk about turn 1, 2, and 3. But a deck that I think is going to be good almost no matter what, even if you don't curve into it and you don't get the pop off. I think Maria Hill, and dare I say it, I think these 2 cards, because they're gifting you the next place, you're able to curve out so beautifully. And you're not trying to do what Electro does. If you try to use Wiccan, how Electro is used, you should just use Electro at that point. But then if you're going to try to really manipulate this extra energy and having 8 energy on turn 6 and even beyond that if you play Magic, I think that's where he's going to shine in these natural ramping cards into something like a Devil Dinosaur build. This is kind of the build that I'm starting to kind of put together here on pen and paper that I like a lot.
It's really fascinating what you're saying here because, like, yes, that gives you a very foolproof backup plan. If, like, hey, if I don't draw into Wiccan or if I wasn't able to get my turn 1, like, you don't draw into Maria Hill or Agent 13 or whatever, Maria Hill better in this case, of course, you do have that backup plan, right? Wiccan just might be a power play of 4/7 at worst, right? Even if you don't get the actual effect. But the thing is, though, I think that if you're having Wiccan in that deck, you're going to want to get that effect because in theory, if Wiccan's opportunity to give you that 2 extra energy is compromised, like almost even someone like a White Queen is almost better in that deck. One of the worst cards in the game, right? So you go from something having like a very high impact on the game state to literally, I don't want to play this card ever. It almost reminds me of like the OG High Evo, where it's like it's in there, but like you don't really want to use it. Just like Wiccan, if you skip turn 1, it's like you're like, I don't want to draw that piece of crap.
Exactly. That's where I like the Quicksilver into the 2s, into the 3s. And what's cool about Coulson is even if you don't get Wiccan until turn 5, maybe, and you can only maybe utilize him at that point in time, which is kind of weird, at least Agent Coulson allows you to kind of go into that play a bit more, which I don't know about you, but Devil Dino decks in the first place, you usually combo it with other synergies like Rocks and Hawks, because there's not a lot to do in some of those mid-turns. Like, it's kind of weird. You know what you're doing later. You want to keep your hand size full. Kate Bishop has answered a lot of that. That is the deck I see him working in very well. But rewinding for just a quick second, I said Quicksilver, we said Maria Hill, and then what? Maybe Kitty Pryde being probably the only other like natural 1-cost card that you keep getting back that you want to play.
Yeah, like the Kitty Pryde based shells, they often have the like the ability to use Kitty Pryde as that like, oh, I have an extra energy, Kitty Pryde, right? I mean, in those decks, you often have Angela, you have to have Thena, and you're in a position where you don't even play Kitty Pryde each turn. And naturally, Kate Bishop is a great card in this circumstance because it gives you the opportunity to play those cards out to fill nicely. In the event you have to play on turn 4, that Wiccan. What's notable is that the 2-drops, and I agree 100%. I don't think Domino ever makes these decks at all because I think it reduces the chance to pull Wiccan too much. You do 1/1-drop. Okay, it's Quicksilver. Because if anything, during Marvel Boy's kind of launch, we'll talk about it more, but I think Marvel Boy's fantastic. Yep. And I've been playing a lot of Zoo decks, and I'm often shocking myself. I'll have 3 1-drops in my deck, and I won't draw them at the start of the game.
Oh my gosh.
And so if you think you can run like just Maria Hill and be like, she'll be there, don't worry, the snap gods have got me, well then like it's a little bit of copium. It might be hard, man, right? Yeah. And so you might need that Agent 13 and those other ones too. And I do think that Kitty Pryde does provide a little bit of utility there. Not
to mention, there's a lot of good 2 costs. But on top of that as well, like as you look at the extra energy, because keep in mind, guys, when I pull this card back up, and for those that can't see it, on reveal, if you spend all your energy plus 2 max energy, so this is really cool because you're going to have that plus 2 max energy. Well, where can you utilize that? You could play something like a 6-cost card with a 2, right? Like these 2s are going to become useful in the later turns as well to play with some bigger cards potentially, because then you don't want to play much after that. Like it's like, you know, in Surfer, you used to have like 1/1 cost, 1/2 cost, all 3s. It's probably like 1/1, a few 2s, and then all big options after Wiccan. That's what I would assume, you know, most likely is going to be the case there. So that's the way that I see it curving out to him. I think when we talk about just base synergy and things that I like a lot about him is he is on reveal. And I think potentially playing him on turn 4. All right. And keep in mind, you can also, we've talked about playing Zabu and Psylocke on turn 2. We've talked about ramping him onto turn 3, which is really cool in theory. And then on turn 4, you could play 6-cost cards. So you have 3 turns, right? Perfect scenario time. And even not perfect scenario, if you didn't get this, you could do this on turn 5. You play Psylocke. You play down Wiccan on turn 3. On the next turn, or as soon as you get to play your cards with Wiccan, I think one of the cool synergies where things can really get out of hand and we can build some unique, different decks. Alex, you ready for this? It's so cool. I think you play Odin on top of Wiccan and you re-trigger his ass. The idea of being able to re-trigger this card, getting another +2, things get out of control quickly. Now, you're looking at like a white hot room type of energy every single game, which is so cool.
I had this thought as well, and I think that they specifically made it so that in a 6-turn game, you won't have 12 energy, which prevents you from playing 2 6 drops on turn 6. I had that thought. It gets to 10, right? It gets to 10 if my memory serves me correct, because you're adding 4 on top of the 6 energy you have. Naturally, hey, if you go Magic turn 3, then it's a totally different ball game, right? You go, Quicksilver, Domino, Magic, Wiccan, Odin, then all of a sudden you're just laughing, right? So that it definitely is a really interesting synergy. I wonder about like the card draw and like if you're able to actually really kind of pull it off to the greatest extent, but it is pretty fascinating.
Well, and Odin, the thing I like about this though is like we're not for I'm gonna build a card while we're talking about this, is we're not forcing anything out of Odin. He kind of already belongs in the deck, right? So he already
100%.
he already is one of the best ramp cards to abuse on turn 6. Love being able to do stuff with like Onslaught and him early. And so to be able to play Odin now and then it's already part of the game plan. It's like, well, fantastic, right? We can already get things cooking with this. So I do think Odin will be in every Wiccan build or damn near close to it to abuse some of this power. And then you can start looking at the 2s and the 3s and stuff you want to do from there. Even like the Devil Dino builds, right? And getting some of these cards back. You can look into those action. Very curious on what this will look like, especially once we've built this out. But Odin's one of my favorites. I have a lot more. Hit me with another base synergy you like.
The other key thing about Odin as well, you don't have to play him on turn 4 or 5, right? The key thing is you can play like Doctor Doom into Odin and still on that last turn, because you're able to play so many 6-drops if you're able to ramp out Wiccan early, you're able to play Odin on top of that Doctor Doom and then get the extra energy for that turn 6 or the final turn 7 or wherever you happen to be. You don't even have to rush him out, which is pretty fascinating, right? I mean, listen, I think that like at the end of the day, I think that it's going to be fascinating to see how the builds revolve around Wiccan. Do you see Wave being a core backup play to this deck?
I was about to bring her up because I was going to say the other card that just goes along, because you have Odin, who, again, fits to the backup plan. You don't draw Wiccan, right? So the only other 3 that you could maybe squeeze in, we're starting to get a little full on the spots here if we look at the 1s and the 2s. But the only one that could just naturally fit in would be Wave, because then at that point, you could play Wave on turn 5, pretty much, right? And you're looking at being able to play the 2 now on turn 6. You can now play 2 6 costs. Your opponent can only play 1. That's where I think she probably could earn that spot over Electro Hope.
Yeah, and I mean, you are sacrificing your turn 5 slightly to do that, but it makes perfect sense because then your cards drop to 4. You're going to be able to play 2 6-drops. You're going to need some sort of like resilience to not just drop your 6-drops on those early turns though, because you're going to be holding them, right? And what's interesting about this deck and what I'm worried about specifically with the deck building around Wiccan is, unlike Electro and standard Wave decks, you're not going to want to put 5 costs in it. Like, it's likely to not have that 5-cost slot. And so if your ramping fails and they snap, I think you have to leave. So I think Wave really occupies an important slot because it'll fill 3 and 4 with one of your big drops. And then hopefully you can fill your 5 somehow, right? It's so tricky. That's why these decks kind of make me nervous. And like, even the, like, I'll be honest with you straight up, right? Like, usually I have like lists ready. With Wiccan, I have a couple drafts ready that I'm not even that excited about yet. And I need to work more in the coming days prior to the launch to kind of refine them more, because I feel like this card, as you said before, is seriously boom or bust.
Yeah, he's definitely going to make people think, which I love. I love this about cards. Like, I think when Pixie came out, it was the same thing. People were like, let's just come up with stuff. Like, I don't know what to do with it, because it was just such a different way to play. My card that I think doesn't get played enough, and I don't, like, it's just like a sleeper in my head, is Cersei. I think Cersei is so unique. Like, I was playing this mill deck where I was playing all these mill cards, and like, once you've used them, they're done, right? And I love what Cersei does because she allows you to utilize these cards that are on the board, right? Like a Silver Samurai, once you've used them, he could become a 5. That's fantastic. So like, I might mix her into the mold here and be my only 5 in the deck, or there's a couple other 5s that I'll talk about. But I agree, super weird. I think all of us want to just say the cards that like make sense, like, oh, high Evo, because you have the natural ones there, and you can, maybe do a shocker or whatever. It's not going to be as cut and dry as I think, and that does excite me. The card synergy is what I have more in my head about, like, what are some specifics. So another one outside of Odin that I think is just really cool and makes a lot of sense is Scar. I think Scar has a shot here just because we've seen this card get more supporting pieces. There's not going to be the 5s there, but we do have a way to get a lot more 6s. So if you ramp out him early, you're looking at potentially not only just a free Scar a lot of the times, but also what's great about a 4 energy, a 2 energy Scar is it's going to fit a part of Wiccan's game plan anyway. You don't need to try to trick out the wave, or maybe you get to play this with the wave on 5. So I think Scar is going to naturally have a pretty cool spot too.
It's pretty interesting when you think about like how large some of the ramped cards can be. And anytime you're putting out big power early on, Scar is definitely a beneficiary of that. And you're right, as he kind of reduces in cost, it allows you to ramp him out or get him out earlier as necessary to keep that kind of curve. But I mean, after turn 3 or 4, like you're either getting your Wiccan proc or you're not, right? And so
Yeah.
like that's kind of another consideration. I had this fun shower thought, which I know is incorrect, but I had this thought of like, wouldn't it have been interesting if Sunspot technically counted as used energy? Like if that utilization of the energy counted, and then all of a sudden Evo actually becomes a deck for Wiccan.
That'd be
And
wild.
then it's kind of interesting, but technically that doesn't work because when you float energy, it counts for Red Hulk, which is the antithesis, like it's the
Right.
opposite, right? So it doesn't work that way, but I did have that shower thought. It would have been a kind of cool idea.
Yeah, like She-Hulk is like definitely not going to be in Wiccan decks. It's like so counterproductive most of the time of what you want to do. I guess outside of playing Wiccan then, and then it's actually a really good card to have in there. It's like you'd actually be able to have a full float sometimes and still play cards. So that is unique. When I thought about some of the 6-cost combos that we have access to, right now at this point in time, I don't think we have like a wild amount of them. But there's the ones that we've talked about in the past with High Evo, right? I think the idea of playing something like Blah, playing Red Hulk, and then having the Arnim Zola play like nice and early, like that's going to be really easy to pull off with this deck build. I think it's kind of cool, too, that you could go and try to do unique things, like play a 1-2-3 Wiccan, then you get to play, and maybe you do 1-2, then you play Wiccan. So let's say you sidelock that out, and you get to play 3 6s. It's like, okay, it'd be kind of cool if you destroyer everything on the board on 4. You kill Wiccan, all of his friends. Then you could play Null. Then you could play Arnim Zola on that note. Like, there's some fun combos that are just, like, different. We haven't had access to. Like, you've never been able to do that many 6-cost cards before. And that's where I think some of the cooking is going to be interesting. We know Doom Odin. We know that's powerful. Do you think, I was thinking about it, one of the best ramps in the game is Tribunal and getting out the Iron Man, yes, but the Onslaught and the Tribunal together. Do you think that Wiccan might be a great either-or option in Tribunal? Because if you don't pull him, it's fine, right? Like, he's just doing the same thing that he's done.
I don't know. I hadn't given that much thought. I didn't associate Wiccan with Tribunal, so you're kind of catching me off guard here. I feel like Tribunal decks really have a set pattern that they go for. They make great use of each individual turn. I don't know if Wiccan really adds that much, but then again, if you think about it, you get the Onslaught out early on turn 4. That allow you at some point you got to get Iron Man in there, right? Onslaught's like one of the key ramp cards of that shell. You get it out on turn 4. You stole Iron Man turn 5. You just float the energy, I guess. But like you could have done it in the other order. I don't know, Cozy. It's kind of an interesting thought, but like Tribunal, it really does its thing, right?
Did you ever see Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness?
I did, yeah.
Did you know Tribunal's in there, like briefly?
No, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, so like when he gets thrown in with Chavez into the star, like into the multiverse, and they go through all those worlds, there's like the paint one and the stretch one. One of those have like a bunch of Tribunal heads like in the thing, and apparently I think it was Tribunal was supposed to be in a movie. I think potentially it was supposed to be in the Doctor Strange movie, potentially, or maybe it was the Deadpool one. I just read this though. I thought that was kind of wild that I saw his face and I was like, wait, I know that guy. I thought that movie was okay, by the way. It let me down a little bit.
Yeah, I thought it was cool. I liked the effects. I thought it was really well done. I liked there was a scene where Doctor Strange kind of fights himself. I thought that was incredible. Like I thought
the
the
music
art in
notes,
it and the CG was some of the best they've ever done.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about the story beats of it because I was actually kind of annoyed with some of the story beats.
Yeah.
But other than that, like it was not bad. Just like this combo, Cozy, that I want to talk. We were talking about combos with Wiccan. I'm like trying to bring it back.
Yeah. Hit me with it.
Okay, listen to this. So I think that earning initiative is going to be one of Wiccan's strong points. Not only is he a 4/7 that can come out on turn 3, allows you to play a turn 4 Doctor Doom if played out on curve. Doctor Doom's great at earning initiative, and I think that Doctor Doom into Alioth could potentially be very damaging because Alioth's coming out on turn 5. It's going to be unexpected. You're earning initiative with Doctor Doom, and so I do think an early Alioth could very well catch people by surprise.
That's a good point. I actually like that a lot. That's definitely solid build there. And I mean, I think ultimately too, we talked about Loki being involved and, Loki's in the spotlight cache. You get these cheap cards. It's like, wow, Wiccan's going to allow you to continue to, get into some of these. One of the big things about this, first, I think that combination's going to be correct. I think Wiccan could belong in Airsham too, because like worst case scenario, like you get to play him early, or if not, it's like whatever. He's a good static card. I think naturally that's going to be in there. if you have to, I don't think it's going to be this way, but if you have to use the energy up the turn Wiccan is played, it'll stop some combos. Like I thought about Absorbing Man right after Wiccan. Like it's the same thing as Odin. You're going to do the same little cheeky thing. We'll have to see if that's the case. If it is, then you could do a lot of, interesting builds. Sadly, I think that Arishem, Loki, Wiccan might be a deck that we see out there towards the beginning.
I suspect that your combo would work because it's an on reveal, which would check the status of the energy being spent at the moment it's played, right?
Yep.
Not at the end of the turn. So I suspect you're actually onto something, man. I bet you Wiccan into Absorbing Man would work.
Which at that point, then you can, then you can get willy-nilly with Odin or whatever you want to do from that point. There's only so many cards that you have in your hand, and you have to be playing these cards out to get Wiccan to go. So they've thought about this. We are really stewing up. We're cooking to get this card to work. That's why I have a lower rating for him. He could blow up. I've said this at the previous of the season 2. This is one of those cards that it wouldn't surprise me if like somebody much smarter than me or you were able to come up with something crazy and it works and it sticks. And I'm excited for that. I'm extremely excited. And I'm almost a little nervous to make the video on him, right? Because I think we could have our first day impressions. We're like, wow, this isn't that great. And then we end up having a card that's not too bad. So he does, any cards like this always has me, a little bit on the nervous side. I want to transition because I think this is the perfect time to do so. What could halt Wiccan in his tracks is a deck and a card that has been hot and on the rise. And it's so funny, Alex. I swear to God, when one 5-cost toxic card dies, the next one is born. And you guys all know what I'm talking about. That is Sandman. And with that, let's go ahead and talk about some hot and rising cards, some decks, to keep you guys up to date for cards to look out for, ones that you should be playing if you're not playing, looking towards the ladder and leagues when we talk about that in a moment, all that good stuff. Sandman, which I think is so funny, bro, that I used to play a Sandman Doctor Doom Patriot deck way back when. I love that. Was like such a hook back in the day. No, who's Sandman and Patriot? What are you doing, Cozy? And now that's kind of like made its way back up because of the arrival of Zoo, which we'll talk about briefly here. But Sandman, man, I'm sure you've seen him plenty in the Ultron Red Hulk decks out there.
Oh yeah, he's all over the place right now. I think he's running like a 15 or 18% win rate last time I checked. I have the number written somewhere in my notes here. But yeah, he is legit being played a ton. Not always great for Marvel Snap. Not always great for Marvel Snap to be seeing tons of Sandman. But I'll tell you, I think it feels fair most of the time.
Yeah, I think
they'll play Sandman. I'm like, I can still play Gilgamesh. Like, I'm probably fine.
It's the tough part is it's fair on a lot of matchups. He can be really tough. Like Regis and I did the Wheel of Snap, and we were guessing back and forth. Is this the Ultron or is this the Red Hulk? It has to be the Ultron. We're winning all the other lanes. Then he plays Red Hulk on our best lane and wins. We're like, oh my gosh. Like that's where it can be really frustrating. It's funny that he survived it because he's the classic leech in the sense of like they have now attempted 30 things at this guy. They've tried so many different ways to try to figure this guy out, and he kind of pops back in. It's not even him. It's all the supporting cast that we've had around him at this point, right? You have Nebula, builds up on her own power. You have Jeffrey, that can be played anytime, anywhere. You've got the Widow being sent over now, which is fantastic as well, right? Like, and then Ultron obviously getting his massive buff, which they better not touch my man Ultron. I love him as a card now. Always did, but I think he's such a threat. I think it's those things that surround him a bit more that are a bit more scary than Sandman himself. But he definitely feels way more fair than these other cards, especially because it's only one turn.
Yeah, they've added tons of cards that really impact the macro level of playing Marvel Snap. Like White Widow is a great example of that. Despite the nerf, you often want to play into that location. Nebula, once again, another card that often kind of sits at a role where it's like, hey, I gotta play into her. I gotta keep that kind of pinned down. Unless you're playing Killmonger and you're like, haha, get up to 9 power and watch what's gonna happen. But I mean, Sandman's interesting from a standpoint of like, I don't know how I feel about it yet. Now I'm seeing lots of like really negative sentiment around about
it's
Sandman.
A new thing to hate. Yeah, it's a new thing to hate.
Yeah, everyone hates it, but like I'm like in my experience, I'm like it doesn't. I don't know. Maybe I'm just not seeing it as much as some others. I don't know. I think I'm okay with it so far. Maybe in the next week I'll be like Sandman table tip.
The new villains of Snap, Sandman.
The new villains of Snap thumbnail.
Topic. There it is. No, I think to be honest though, I think that sometimes just like in Spotlight Caches, they give you the answers to the deck build. Sometimes they also give you the answers in things like OTA. And I've been on this train for a long time. I liked him in the day. I can admit that I fumbled on his rating completely. But I still play him more often than not. The Black Knight version, more than other ones. But if you are sleeping on him, here's your time. This is your answer. This is your one-way ticket. Hot and Rising. Guys, put together War Machine decks. He just got to be a 4/7. He's still a card. He's a card that completely can shut down Sandman. Doesn't even have to worry about him. It's very obvious when you're playing a Sandman deck. And so there's ways. What I love about him is, in a sense, he's kind of like Airsham in the fact that you can, not Airsham, sorry, Annihilus, that you can put him in different deck builds without the whole deck being around War Machine. And so I know you're sitting there like, you're waiting to say so. But you love to play him on turn 5 anyway for Infinite to be played on turn 6 for free. Like, there's a lot of cool ways that you can play War Machine, and it's your direct counter to Sandman, and he's a 4/7.
I love how like you're kind of like giving all this hopium, and you know that like you're like, no, let me finish, Alex. Let me finish my coping. I was just gonna say the only thing about War Machine that bothers me is that he's 4-costed. If he was a 5-cost, he'd come down as Sandman came down, and that's a total net loss for them. If he was like a 5/10, 5/9, I don't know what would be a fair number. I'm not a game designer. Let's say he's a 5/9. They play Sandman, you play War Machine. Their play is null and void. The challenge is that like you have him at turn 4, you're not going to play him, right? You're holding him for turn 5 in the event that they play Sandman, or you have other ways to work around it too. He has other benefits naturally, but if he was a 5-costed card, the Infinite and everything else, it just kind of settles in a little nicer, doesn't it?
Yeah, I play tech decks with him. Like, I don't think you need to be playing these big 6-cost cards with War Machine. Like, Infinite, you can, but, like, you can completely shut down. Like, Sandman decks, they're not ahead of you by wide margins. Like, they benefit off of being slightly ahead of you and then locking you down, and then you're stuck. And it's the end. By the way, Sandman's coming out because Zoo's out, right? And that's why I don't hate Sandman. Like, if you didn't buy the Season Pass card, like, yeah, spoiler, Marvel Boy's freaking great. We're going to talk about him. I like that we have answers to things that are great in the you know what I mean? Like, I think that's a fair thing to happen. But I think War Machine, built in the right decks, is a great card now. Look around. I'm telling you, I think he's solid. I think he's not that bad.
And another notable that, before we get into that, is that, like, Sandman's doing his job. It's exactly what you're saying. He is releasing the valve that needs to be released, and it doesn't feel great all the time. But it's actually technically doing its job. Just like Cassandra Nova is. Cozy, talk about hot and rising. Could you be any hotter than a 38% meta share?
I thought you were going to say, can be any hotter than Cassandra's. Like, I mean, you know.
No, we can be hotter than Cassandra. I mean, listen, that is a really nice bald head. I'm all for it. But, like, at the end of the day, it's like 38% of the meta? Cozy? That is insane. It doesn't get much hotter than that.
Yeah, she's just such a good card to ramp into because she's great stats. Like, we're like, wow, 4/7, so good for Wiccan. It's not, how about a 3/7? Like, that also drains your opponent's, stat lines, can really ruin a lot of deck builds out there. And then, yeah, you always get like, it feels so good to be playing that Airsham player or whatever. And it's just like, checkmate, I win, feels great. Yeah, I think Cassandra, I had her on my list too. Very good card at the moment. I think it's cool to see some of these toxic cards be their nature without being like frustrating like Leech, which takes me from Cassandra to another 3-cost. If you're not playing Viper now, I don't know what you're doing. Viper has gone from a card that got deleted from the game when she went from 2 to 3 to just a incredible identity around her as a card. Now, have you been playing a lot of Viper?
Yeah, Viper's on a huge roll up. It's running 9% of the meta right now, and its ability to target, this is very similar to what happened to like Blade, right? Like, useless card, change to have a targeted ability, amazing card, vital to a specific archetype. Viper's exactly that. Now, every time I see a hood on the field of play, I'm like, damn, that thing's coming over.
Oh, yeah. Like, it's funny because you almost like, now it's like Annihilus, okay, I'll play Viper, who's just more dependable at getting that over most of the time. Like, it's crazy. She does what she does best now. She's 5 power. She has 3 cost. Feels good to, even if, like, worst case scenario, you just play her into an empty lane, like, okay, you just get a nice little power bump up there. Like, very solid card. And she, again, doesn't need a lot of cards around her. Like, she needs some compliments, but not that much. And I think those are the best cards in the game.
Oh, there's no question about it. I really do like what they've done with Viper. And another card that's definitely been on the rise, and we did discuss it prior. I just want to give a shout out to Ultron, running a 17% meta share. And he doesn't feel like a problem. I like what you said before. Don't nerf him, don't do that. I don't feel like Ultron is at a point where like it's the problem with like a lot of these decks. I think he's doing a really good job at like servicing the needs of those really high performing decks, but I wouldn't identify Ultron as a problem at 17%. But I do want to give a shout out at 24% of the meta. I'm going to rephrase that because you put a different card on the screen.
No, you just got so distracted.
19,
it was great.
I was going to talk about someone else. Well, we can do Skillmonger now. At 19% of the meta, we'll talk about Skillmonger.
I was going to bring him up just naturally because if you're losing to Ultron, just learn how to throw priority a tad bit better in some of your matches, and then you can, you get the hard counter with him. And then I thought it was a perfect moment. I think it was the abs, by the way, that made Alex stutter there. I saw you. You looked down. You didn't look up. Look at his face. He's a person. Man. Yeah, Kyra exists. I get it. But if they're playing Zoo, you can oftentimes get ahead of them on those early turns. And then you just, Killmonger, such free wins. If you were to play, sometimes it's tough being a content creator. Because, I know what I could be playing just to be soaring through the ranks. But instead, I play, the cards of the new cards to be, showcase those. Killmonger's on a tear.
No, I agree, by the way. On a note about being a content creator, I had this absolute pure copium deck where I was playing Kate Bishop in a Devil Dinosaur Zola deck. And I knew I wasn't going to be ranking efficiently with it, but I just wanted to play. I wanted to split the dino. I wanted to dodge Shang-Chi's. And I was doing it. We were winning, but it was fun. And you're exactly right. Killmonger is such a killjoy, really. He ruins the party. And it's making Kyra definitely become a major factor to the point where if I'm playing a deck and they're zooing out and they play a Squirrel Girl early, I'll play Killmonger on 3 because I know Mockingbird's coming out soon. It's even better to curve them out sometimes just to blow up their board state nice and early to kind of throw off their plays. He's definitely a major contributing factor. And once again, a major release valve. A lot of people associate Killmonger with Destroy, but he's been in Sarah Control. He's in Sarah Surfer. He's been in a number of different shells, so he can often surprise you.
One more 3 cost before I go to yours. Technically, if you take a turd and you put a candle in it and you light it on fire, it is hotter than it was once before, or maybe something wet. I guess a cold is a better example. But besides that point, it went from trash to not as bad, dude. I think Black Swan is actually a little bit on the rise, buddy. Bishop Bounce, which is one of the greatest names ever, is such a fun, unique deck in the way that it works. And a combo that continues to be fun is having something like a Sasquatch and being able to play Black Swan into a Falcon, where it's like this new beast, but all of your cards that come back are now free to play. Did you play any of the Bounce? Because Black Swan deserved a spot in those decks, especially with Werewolf by Night.
My original kind of attempt at a deck build around Kate Bishop was a Black Swan deck. It was called Black Bishop. And people were like, yo, Bishop's not even in this deck. Actual 3-1 Bishop. I was like, what? And people got super confused at the name. But I actually didn't find Black Swan to be that bad. But in a 12-card game, I cut Black Swan. And I even cut the Werewolf by Night version. Okay, this might be a hot take.
With Hitmonkey too? Did you try Hitmonkey with Black Swan? Okay.
I did. I liked Sasquatch better. Because I was just
I had him in there.
Yeah, you did? Okay.
Yeah. So I had him in. I had Hood, Rocket Raccoon. So some of the cheaper ones you can. I love Rocket, by the way, in a bounce deck. Yeah, so insanely deadly. Nico, I had Beast. I had Collector because Collector with Kate, Fantastic. Collector with Falcon, Fantastic. Beast as well. Falcon, Kate Bishop. I had the Bishop. This is the most cuttable card.
You had actual Bishop?
This was the most cuttable card because I did it for the meme for the Bishop. I thought Sage was better in this role typically. Werewolf by Night, Hitmonkey. All right, so no Mysterio, which is a little shocking. You can go Mysterio and Mockingbird. I get that. And then finally I had Black Swan into Sasquatch. So this way you had, so you had these two that were the main contributors of the deck. The only thing that was tough to do is your hand size would get a little full sometimes, which means the deck's doing its job, right? You're happy about it if your hand size is full. This deck could get Collector to 9, 8 very consistently, and you had so many ways to dump down these cards. I thought this was an incredible deck.
Yeah, very similar to what I was trying. I ultimately cut Werewolf by Night. I didn't like Werewolf that much. I felt like he was still awkward and the payoff wasn't quite there.
Okay.
And also just for the memes and for the flavor, I did take out Rocket Raccoon and I put in Hawkeye, actual Hawkeye, just because I'm but in my video I was like, hey, just FYI, this was for pure flavor. Rocket Raccoon is better in this deck. Yeah. But I do like it, and you're right. Black Swan definitely has a role to play there, and again, I want to just give you props because months ago you talked about how Sasquatch was one of the best cards in Snap. It is still completely and utterly underplayed, guys. The win rate is phenomenal. The cube rate's phenomenal. I don't know, man. I feel like this is probably one of the most slept on cards in the game.
I don't get why people didn't like this card. What did it not do? I don't know. And I think it's shining now because Shang-Chi is lower. As Killmonger goes up, Shang-Chi goes down. vice versa. And because Zoo's doing so good, like this is, and that's just kind of how this works. So Sasquatch has a bit more room to run. I still can't tell you how much I don't enjoy playing Bounce that much, though. It's just way too, bro. I just like, I'm stupid. I just like, I'm just trying to commentate. I'm not, I can't do the physics. There's just so much to think of. And no matter what, I can win an 8-cuber, and I know I'll get comments of, you should have done this, this, and that. And like, like that, it's too much pressure. It's too much.
It is way too much pressure. That move, right? I actually didn't mind playing Bounce. It's okay. It's not my deck. Like I know there's a few content creators that just relish in the idea of playing Bounce, right? Talk about move, right? Like obviously like Molt was one of those guys that just played move type thing. And I mean, if you're gonna be really fixated on very specific archetypes, then like Bounce is definitely rewarding. Move is definitely coping, but we'll talk about that maybe in the near future. But listen, I've been holding on to this 24% meta breaker for like 10 minutes now. And I want to just give a shout out to Blue Marvel. Like Blue Marvel is legitimately in so many different decks. He's sneaking into a lot of different packages. Obviously, he's doing super well in Zoo. But Blue Marvel is like one of those cards that like he's a 5/3, but when you actually think about the amount of power he's outputting, especially if you're playing something like a Gilgamesh, it's crazy how much Blue Marvel actually contributes to the overall win condition of a deck.
Absolutely. And hey, we haven't done this in forever. It's split time. I've been needing a new Blue Marvel split. I haven't had one in a while. This guy just came into, I'm going to pay for the boosters to cover him. This is going to come into it. I have an inked, but I need a gold. So wish me luck here, Alex. Blue Marvel,
Good
though,
luck.
Fantastic point. I think that, like, man, he's just a good card. He's always been that good, fantastic card to play. Can fit in the most. With the Snapchat luck, I have a lot of bad luck with Blue Marvel. One of my most splits without anything. Mr. Alex, can we see it? Oh, okay. Hey.
That's gold.
I'll take it. You know what, dude? I'm not even kidding you. I have like 20 splits, not gold. I got my first gold. All right. I've got a little... There's just the... you have to put on the magnifying glass. Enhance. Okay, there's the little black swirl around it. So I'll take it. But yes, I think Blue Marvel... good shout out to him, especially in the Zoo build, man. Like he's doing work.
Yeah, he does work in a lot of different decks. Like, I mean, even in like, you can make arguments for him in some of these Ultron-based packages. You're seeing him in like, like the Brood Absorbing Man-based decks, right? Which kind of like try to put out as much power as possible. He kind of gets splashed into very different things. I want to say that I was experimenting with a Thanos-based Marvel Boy deck with Blue Marvel. And again, Blue Marvel just puts out a tremendous amount of power. And we would be remiss not to mention Alioth is making a bit of a comeback here at 14% of the meta. Pretty high. And I think that because it's not as common as it used to be, I think it's catching more people for A-Cube surprises.
No, for sure it is. Man, I got the Miss Marvel thumbs up the other day like 10 times after playing an Alioth play because he's not as expected. No question about it. And I think off your Blue Marvel point, I think Super Skrull is worth a hot and rising consideration, guys. If you're playing a deck that you like, but you don't want to counter Zoo, like you don't want to worry about them, like ongoing cards are freaking everywhere at the moment. They're absolutely everywhere. And so Super Skrull is such a quick answer. He's, again, that release valve to ongoing when that gets too spiced up and too crazy, man. So those are definitely some of them. My other honorable mentions, Juggernaut, Namora, we mentioned them last week. I think the Goblins and Junk in general is doing really well to stop these decks that need that precious space, bro. Like, space is becoming hard in the game.
Yeah, it is becoming hard, and I mean, Viper's not helping with that. And another last card I want to just shout out here is at 18% of the meta. I think Nocturne needs to be respected as one of the top cards in the game right now. I'm seeing it everywhere, but I'm also seeing it scam people, man. Like, I was playing a Wong deck, and they Nocturned into my Wong location. I'm not making this up. I turned it on Salt Citadel, and they just retreated. Like, It's hilarious what happens with this card.
Again, to mention the Wheel of Snap, Regis and I were playing a game. We were getting our tails kicked. And on the last turn, this guy moved Nocturne because he could. And I'm like, don't do that. Like, bro, you have the game. That yes, it's like a 1 in 20 chance, but you are, giving reasons for that to be barred with no name and just seal the deal, man. But yeah, Nocturne, it's funny. We talked about this with Speed, who we didn't mention with Wiccan. Obviously, he's going to be, good synergy there. But I think Speed could be not as good as Nocturne, but in that same boat of like, it's a boring card, but it's a good card. And I think people had that same thing with Nocturne. They were just, it's not that great. What is it going to do? Oh, be one of the best cards that we've seen in the year. So it's crazy that sometimes just like super unique doesn't always go with being very strong in the game. So those are the hot risings. We talked about Wiccan. I want to end on our last bit here, and that is, let's talk about the future of the game. Now, first of all, we had the Deadpool League, and if you guys are not familiar with this, that means you didn't play the game the last few days. It was a disaster. Wouldn't you have guessed it? Now, the actual format, the actual prizes, all that stuff, I thought was really well done. We've gotten multiple ways now to get free rewards in the game. I'm very happy about that, Alex. However, there was in my league, definitely. Oh my gosh, one guy was like going crazy with it. There was a way to find a buddy. Alex, hey, what's up? Dial. My friend, do you want to do Proving Grounds, launch up at the same time, and do some win trading together? And the wins, and I did like that they counted Conquest for those that wanted to do that game mode, having Proving Grounds, even silver, dangerous territory there, and that allowed people to farm up cubes and get up to thousands of thousands. And when you have something like a free Deadpool emote, or a cool Deadpool emote, then people are going to be mad about it, right? So they realized their mistakes. They gave the Deadpool emote to all the player base, which was really cool and a win. Good job, Second Dinner, for doing that. However, it was a little bit of a disaster at first.
Dude, to be honest with you, first of all, kudos to Second Dinner for trying to make the make it right. 100%, they deserve credit for that. But I just want to throw it out here. Statistically, 2 releases of leagues, 2 apology statements released as well alongside.
0-2,
right?
0-2.
It's like, I don't want to be mean, but it's like, I gotta be honest with you. I was like, I'm not engaging with this. Like, I hope they don't put like really exclusive rewards behind it, because like, it's just not the way I play Marvel Snap. It's not the way I want to play anything. Like this idea of like, and listen, kudos to anybody that wants to like, I want to grind. Like, kudos to you, man. Go for it. It's just not for me. When I saw that, I'm like, I will never engage with this system
Are you like that in all games, or is it just Snap? So like, because I think it's a good thing. I think like if you don't want to play, like great, you just get some free boosters, whatever, right? And then if you want to put in the effort, it doesn't need to be like I don't care about like the emote. I think is perfect. I think the emote was perfect. It's like an emote that people want. I get it. So if you really want it, you can try to get it. They put you with fair MMR or whatever, so that's also kind of a nice gesture. It's not like 2,000 people or whatever that might be. I was okay with it in the sense of like, if it was in a game like Marvel Rivals where you would have to, I would play the hell out of that to try to get up and get a skin or something. So is it Snap? Is it all games? Just curious on your thought.
I don't know how to really articulate how I felt about it. I just don't like, it's the kind of thing that might encourage unhealthy approaches to playing a game that's a mobile game that you're supposed to be having fun with. At its core, it definitely prioritizes like long play sessions, aggressive grinding, stuff like that. I don't know if that's healthy. Like, I don't know if that's the kind of thing that we want to aspire to. I mean, there's people that obviously want to engage with that, and that's absolutely cool. I'm glad. I would just be nervous about them putting too many exclusive rewards around like extreme grinds, like the way that would be, and time limited grinds too. It's like, hey, if I don't sleep for the next 2 days, hey, I just might get an emo. You know what I mean? I'm very uncomfortable with this league setup, although I recognize it's very common in mobile game territory.
I want to see it without the win trading and see how that feels, and if it was for a longer duration or whatever. They can't go too long. They can't go too short. I am on the front of like, don't do new cards or whatever in there. Cosmetics.
Oh, for sure. That would be disastrous.
Yeah, it would be disastrous. New card or cosmetics though, like I personally don't have a crazy problem with it. But yeah, to each their own, man. Let us know down in the comments below or yell it out to the void when you're listening to the podcast. But that being said, so we have leagues, and then we have like the diner thing come up. So we're having like a lot of mini events happen throughout the month, which I think is exciting and a good thing for the game and the culture of the game. I think, though, as they work on what we assume is draft mode, which I think is really, a cool mode that they can bring into the game. Excited to see what that can turn into. I also want them to, as we talk about the future Snap very briefly here, I want to see them try something new with the game. I think like Conquest, Deadpool's Diner, it's a lot of what we already have, and I want to see these cards and what they do built in a new way to play the game mechanically.
Very interesting, right? That's a very fascinating point, because like there's 2 arguments to that. One, I think you're right. That would be super great to get this universe, get these cards, utilize this IP in a super creative way that's really, really fun. At the other side to that, the thing that makes Marvel Snap so good is its core gameplay.
Yeah.
And when you start to move away from that, you're moving away from what like we know is so good about Marvel Snap. However, However, you're right. Conquest, Deadpool's Diner, and these new modes we've had have been basically rehashes of the existing gameplay experience and nothing truly innovative, right? I'm hoping that draft mode can be more innovative.
Yeah.
I often use the example of like Battlegrounds and Hearthstone because I think that like it completely revitalized that game. In fact, there are more. I'm almost 99% positive I saw a statistic that showed that the Battlegrounds mode of Hearthstone gets more plays than just standard ranked.
Yeah,
And
auto battlers, something like they need to, like Fortnite did this too. Like they didn't land on their core concept till they went through a couple game modes as well. Like I think, by the way, I think the main game mode is fine. I think what they did learn is don't go conquest route, don't go long games. People play Snap for the short snappiness of it, no pun intended, right? So I want to see that if they can do that in a different light, even as something as simple as the 2v2 where there's an extra location. I don't really know. I think I'm not the game designer. I'm going to let them handle that. But I want to see that into the future for the game to maintain a healthy environment. Because if they go this route of just like being fun, if they don't want to do leagues because people don't like it or whatever, and they don't go into the competitive scene, which you have to either reward people for a competitive scene or you do something fun and casual and unique like a different game mode. That's my thought, at least.
As opposed to leagues, which honestly I was very unimpressed with, generally speaking, again, that's just not a system that I personally want to engage with. I really liked, so StarCraft 2, I believe it was, had this mini tournament mode where at different points of the day you can sign up for a tournament, and it started in like quarterfinal stage, and then it would go semifinal stage, a round of 16, and then like you would queue into a mini tournament that would take like an hour or two. I think that could be interesting in Snap, like a new mode where it's like this like tournament based mini mode where you sign up with 16 other players and actually like rank, and then like, oh, I'm moving on to the quarters, I'm moving on to the semis, the finals, and you get rewards based on that. I would be more interested in that because it's a much more concise experience, skill-based experience, as opposed to leagues, which just might be someone with a bot or win trading or something cringe, right? So
yeah, lastly, I want to say card packs, new player experience in the sense of not keeping Nova as Nova or whatever the hell they say on OTAs, but more of like, we have gotten to the point, anyone that played Snap at the beginning or even year one, they are at a pretty healthy place in Snap where they have all the 1, 2, and even most of 3, right? Want to see there if you're playing it and you've put in some time, not even that much time, like you should be offered a destroy route, a discard route, and kind of like make it easier to get into the core mechanics of the game and jump right in. One of the great things about, again, Fortnite is you can play and you're going to feel like you already kind of know what you're doing once you got the strategy down. Right.
You know who does that really well? Diablo. With the way their seasons are structured, they encourage people just to like pick up, oh, you didn't play for the last 3 seasons, we got a whole bunch of updates. Pick any character. They're all better now. And everyone's starting for so like it really makes it welcoming to start playing again. And that's something Snap doesn't do. They did have a bunch of paid bundles in the web store that had like different themes around them, right? But they were paid bundles and they were kind of expensive. So and they all had Series 3 cards. I was like,
hate the whole web store. I think
it was almost the right idea, just poor execution.
Yeah, the web store is its own beast. But yeah, excited to see you guys. Shorter than I wanted the subject. Maybe we'll have it in the future. We had a lot to talk about in the Hot and Rising and Wiccan. With that, we're going to be talking over on Alex's side of this episode of the Snapchat with Kate Bishop, Marvel Boy, and the best token shop buys. Thanks, guys, for hanging out. And as always, till the next one, happy snapping.